Hello and welcome to Untold Facts. My name is Arit Okpo. Now, many of the opinions that govern LGBT conversations, especially in the media and in mainstream conversations, are led by very inaccurate information or sometimes ignorance. These are the myths that characterize how people think about LGBT people. In today's conversation, we're going to unpack some of those myths and interrogate why people believe them, as well as present a more correct narrative. In 2018, there were over 200 reported hate crimes against LGBT people in Nigeria. Now, these were crimes carried out by fellow citizens, individuals who felt empowered to carry out acts of hate against another human being simply because of their sexuality.
They came down from the bus with guns and they had their uniform. So they asked me to bring out my ID card, which I did. And one of them said I was looking like a lady in my ID card.
I didn't remember to be scared. I just pictured the end. I tried to imagine how this tragedy was already going to play out.
So the boy was trying to escape, but it was too late. They dragged him back, they started beating him, everything. At the end of the day, I don't know where they take him to.
Now, there's certain fundamental rights that every Nigerian citizen is entitled to. The right to privacy, the right to life, the right to freedom of association and assembly. Actually, hold that. Because LGBT people in Nigeria have that last right, the right of freedom to assembly and association, severely limited.
Is there ways in which we use legal structures and violence and oppression to determine someone's ability to live fully?
I think this is why we're here, to increase people's knowledge of their rights.
So I'm very happy to know that the statistics, the data is showing that perceptions are changing, that people are becoming more aware of the real life implications of these laws. Because I think when people don't understand that these laws affect people on a day-to-day basis, then they're less likely to care. So I'm really happy.
Change is coming. It's slow. It's taking a while, but it will surely come.
None of us is free until all of us are free. This is how we can have a more inclusive and a more diverse society. My name is Arit Okpo. Thank you for watching. I have two very interesting guests with me today. They're people that you must have seen on social media or on television, depending on your medium. First, I have Harry Itie, who is a Nigerian journalist and an equality advocate. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. Thank you for having me, Arit.
Thank you for coming. Yeah. We also have Chiedozie Dike, who is a writer and a lawyer, and the co-host of the Minority Report Nigeria, which is it's a vlog or an online talk show that also talks about LGBT experiences. So you can see that we are a very, equipped panel to talk about this conversation. Yes. And one of the reasons why I'm very happy that you're both in the media is because the media is one of the biggest culprits in presenting this vast array of myths and false information. So let's break some of these down. I want to hear your opinions, and let's go there. Yes. The very first one, sexual orientation can be changed. These people that have chosen gayism.
Yes. Yeah. To be a gay.
To be a gay. Why are you a gay? Let's talk about that.
I feel like I think that the reason why people believe that sexual orientation can be changed is because of social conditioning.
Yes.
So a lot of social conditioning in Nigeria as a society comes from religion. So if you're a Christian and if you're a Muslim, so the church has told you that, oh, God is willing to change you from being this, queer person. God can make you straight, even though there's no place in the scriptures that says, oh, God would turn a gay man straight or a lesbian woman or whatever. So I feel like a lot of that has to do with social conditioning and the fact that religious leaders have fed it to their congregation so much, so they start to believe it and they start to like internalize it that, okay, this is what can happen when you go for deliverance, we wipe you a few times, you drink some water and everything, and then automatically you're a straight person.
I'm even very happy you mentioned this thing, and we're going to put a pause on it because we'll come back to it later. But Chiedozie, to me, I think about it like, if it was easy for people to choose their orientation, that's easy. Then obviously, straight people would also be at equal risk to just wake up one morning and realize, oh wow,
Yeah, because what I think is, usually the framing of this sort of conversations is are people born gay? But the truth is, there's nothing, as far as you, there's nothing that can be true for being a gay person that will not be true for being heterosexual.
Yes.
And I think that's the way power works, because it gives you, you look at who is able to define.
The majority defines the minority.
So a straight person says a gay and doesn't realize that you are also a straight. Right? So it goes both ways, it's by direction. There's nothing that can possibly be true for homosexuality that will not be true for heterosexuality.
Exactly.
Which is why I feel like, you know, a lot of these inquiries is just because you hear stuff like, is there engaging? For me, that sort of premise is very faulty. You know, and the premise dictates the praxis. Yes. Because if what you're investigating is whether or not people are born gay, as opposed to whether or not sexual orientation is written in biology, then you can see that there is no possible outcome that will not be biased.
Very true. Okay, so if you were to then present a response, Harry, to people who are very aggressively contending that no one is born gay or that people choose, which is such a strange way to think about it, especially when you think about all the social and religious and cultural turmoil that surrounds being an LGBT person, especially on the continent. So if somebody were to come to you and say, Harry, you know, I've thought about it and I believe that people choose their sexual orientation, what would you say?
I'll say, why would anybody want to choose discrimination? Why would anybody choose a life of constant hiding in the shadows, living in the shadows? I mean, Exodus International was the biggest anti-gay movement that there was. They claimed that they could change you from being gay to being straight, and then after 30 years, you know, the founder comes and says, oh no, maybe I was lying. Oh, however, me too, I am still, you get what I'm saying? After he had led many people to believe that because they couldn't change, they were at fault, and then he comes out to say that, oh, he's sorry, you know, he made a mistake. He was, they really never changed anybody. So if, I mean, there is proof, there's evidence that conversion therapy doesn't work. There's evidence from the guy that ran the biggest conversion therapy in America saying that, oh, we relied, and even me, who, that's the guy I'm talking about, he said that even himself, you know, is still struggling with same-sex urges. So I'm just like, you know, there's proof on overwhelming proof that you don't choose your sexuality. So I think anybody that still wants to believe that is just being willfully ignorant at this point, because all the science points that it's
just to something totally different. And you're leading to a very good point, which is this whole thing about conversion therapy and some of the heartbreaking ways that it is carried out, especially again here on the continent, where people are forcibly restrained, people are imprisoned, they're, you know, how I'm trying to think of how to frame this in the sense that how much responsibility do you think that our religious organizations have to bear for this prevailing mindset, especially because I'm thinking I'm a parent who loves my child, and then I'm told that to cure my child, I must put them in this place where they will be treated as less than human. What kind of conditioning or what kind of message do you think leads to people thinking that that's a justifiable course of action?
Well, with religions, right, usually there's this call for followers of a religion to suspend logic. Like you look at the definition of faith according to, I was raised Catholic. You know, faith is a supernatural gift of God which enables you to believe without doubting whatever God has revealed. And then who is the mouthpiece of God? Is whoever is on the pulpit. So whatever that person is saying, you know, is directly, you know, coming from above. And you are told constantly to suspend your own logic. So yes, the church bears a very, you know, large part of the blame, but it also speaks to the failure of the state in general. Yes. Because I feel like the church is filling a position that civil institutions should. Yes. Right? Because we do not have civil institutions. So the church is filling that space. So it's a mixture of things, but the church does bear a lot of the blame.
I also love to add to that in the sense that I was raised a Christian. If you look at the life of Jesus and how he interacted with people who were broken and people who needed healing or who needed they were never put in humane situations.
Exactly.
You know, so I feel like the people who follow Christianity need to look back and say that, okay, these people that are the mouthpieces of God, these pastors and these religious leaders, are they acting like Christ? I mean, to be Christian is to be Christ-like. You know, are they if they say that they can convert someone from being gay to straight, was that how will Jesus put someone in a less than human situation? You get what I'm saying?
We have long established that religious institutions, and you said it so well when you said many religious institutions are taking the place of civil organizations, because we've seen in the long history of religion that the means of dealing with many of these things, I mean, any dissent of any sort, has not always been civilized. But now this is the thing that interests me, that more and more, even in religious circles, theologians are suggesting, not even suggesting, they have said, you know, we're interpreting these things, we interpreted them wrong, knowledge has evolved. How long do you think it will take for that awareness to trickle down here to where we can now even say that, okay, perhaps the Bible doesn't necessarily condemn homosexuality in the way that we have taught it has, you know, because it feels then that people are saying apostasy in the church and we have to reject it. Heresy. So do you think it's going to trickle down?
Personally, I don't even think within context of, LGBT advocacy activism that's something to even bother with. You know, because I mean, I feel like the Bible is a historical document, and the most you can get from history is context. But we have the here and now. You have flesh and blood human beings, and you can see this. So if you cannot empathize with an actual person in front of you, I don't think such a person would believe, oh, we misinterpreted this or whatever. So I feel the emphasis should be on now and speaking truth to power and actually, deconstructing and, the power structure.
So how do you think we can do that, deconstruct the power structure?
People need to hold their leaders to account, and it has to start from the church, and I think that in Nigeria, I think one of the reasons why we even have problem holding our government to account is because we don't even do that in our own small spaces. I can't hold my father to account. I can't hold my mother to account. She's my mother. I can't hold my pastor to account. I can't say that, our pastor. I mean, the Bible clearly even states that you hold your leaders to account if they've erred. They step down. We don't have that system here. Whatever the pastor says is law, is God, and the pastor knows they have power. And to be able to utilize the power, they have to utilize it with fear, So there's a lot of there's a lot that's involved in that, and it's going to be a while, like a long while. But until the people in the church or in religious institutions in general start to hold their leaders to account, it's going to be a very long process.
And I mean, when you think about it, for you to cure something, there must be a problem, you know? I saw a very interesting phrase that I think will stick with me for a long time, which was that there is no illness, so there is no need for a cure, And getting to a place where we can stop treating being LGBT as something that needs to be fixed, it's a very long way to that. Now, let's go to something that happened, I think it was a couple of years ago, where there was a series about a transgender child that was supposed to be on one of the digital television platforms. I Am Jazz. And there was an outcry because parents were convinced that their children would watch that. And just like you catch chickenpox or you catch a cold, they would catch it from the television, like you catch anointing. So, let's explore a little bit the implications of that kind of belief for a child or a minor who knows that they're LGBT. How do you, let's put ourselves in that young person's mind and talk a little bit about how they might feel watching their parents, fight so strongly against something that they know they are.
I feel like it's representation is important. Let's just start from that from that point. The fact that people need to see more LGBT characters on TV. We don't have enough. I know people say, there's a gay agenda and everybody on TV is supposedly queer. But the truth is, for a child who had the opportunity to see Jazz be her authentic self, live out her truth with the support of a loving family, and that was deprived from that child, I feel like it is, there's going to be so much emotional turmoil that that child will have to deal with, you know, because of that situation, and maybe people don't understand it, you know, maybe the parents don't understand, you know, and don't know any better, and that is why it's important for us, you know, who are in the media space to start to now use our platform to educate and say that, you know what, people who are LGBT have been seeing heterosexual people on TV for the longest time, and nothing has happened to them. It hasn't made them any straight. It hasn't made them any cis. You know, people who are LGBT are still LGBT regardless of what they see on TV. So we need to get to a space where we start to educate people so that parents start to do better by their kids, so that LGBT kids don't end up being in a space where they feel they have to hide or shrink themselves, you know?
Yeah. And Chiedozie, what would you say to a parent perhaps who said to you, they expressed their fears to you about this content and how it would corrupt their child? What would your feedback be?
I mean, I feel like it comes from, you know, there's a big insecurity around the subject. Yes. You know, we live in a very patriarchal society, and which you even notice when there's conversation around homosexuality, it's usually phallocentric, it's usually very male-centered.
This is true.
Yeah, so I tell people that there are very few things that challenge, you know, our notions of masculinity, like, you know, homosexuality, and that is I feel is the source of, you know, this craziness around all of this.
Now let's think about a young person who is coming to terms with who they are, coming to terms with their sexuality, a young LGBT person. How do you think? Let's put ourselves in their shoes for a second and see how they feel watching their loved ones, you know, be so frightened that this television program is going to corrupt, and that's the word that keeps coming, corrupt. How do you think a young person might feel listening to their loved ones, listening to their friends and their family talk about who they are with such disgust and such fear?
I feel like that young person is going to be traumatized, first of all. The young person will not be able to live, you know, to the best of their potential, because you're always trying to hide something, you know, and so and there's a way we like to think that you are separate from. I mean, sexuality is a huge part of who you are, you know, and it ties into how you express yourself, how you are creative, how you function in the office. It all flows in together. So if you're having to shrink yourself, you know, and to, let me make myself less gay or less trans or less whatever, you know, there's going to be a problem of trying to not be your full self. And I think that is really harmful, you know, and that is why it is important for us as media people to try as much as we can to be able to push, you know, a better narrative, to be able to elevate conversations around LGBT people, and to be able to show these young people that, you know, you can actually be your true self.
And there are also like health ramifications to that. There's this thing called weathering. There's evidence that people who have to face discrimination over a long period of time constantly, you know, have far worse, you know, their health their general health is in a worse state compared to others, you know, people who don't have to go through the same discrimination. So yes, that's also a thing. It also has health ramifications. You are literally killing people.
This, you know, I think that one of the reasons why talking about these myths is so important is because there are real life implications for the people who are affected by these opinions and by these perspectives. Let's assume, you know, you have a commenter on your talk show, and the person says, I'm concerned that my younger brother, you know, he has some friends that are gay, and I'm concerned that he will somehow, in hanging out with them, become gay, or my younger sister. How, because I mean, I know that parents love their children, and so let's assume this is coming from a place of love. How would you respond?
First of all, you cannot contract, you know, gayness from social contact. It's not chickenpox, right? But there's also the possibility that when you see people who are living their truth, it would inspire you, you know, if you're somebody who's closeted, to come out. So that's a possibility. It doesn't then mean that your son was converted or they changed him or anything. It's just that he's probably been afraid all along. And now he sees people who inspire him to you know, step out as himself. So that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing, actually. I
think that's a really great way to put it. Now, there's a myth that I like, because on the surface, it looks very benign. Nobody I know is gay. Or like somebody said recently, 96% of relationships are heterosexual.
Oh, wow.
Because that's erasure.
Very scientific.
You understand? How did you I was fascinated by the precision of that.
96.
You know? Let's talk about why this is not as benign as it looks. Who wants to go first?
I feel it boils down to representation, though. I feel like, and visibility is also a problem.
Yes.
So yeah, we have a representation issue, and I think that we have representation issues because we don't have visibility. We have a visibility problem. So in a way, we don't have, and visibility is not necessarily coming out and say, oh, I'm gay, I'm waving the rainbow flag. It's just in your people have been, society has made people hide so much that even your friend might be gay and you have no idea.
You have no idea, yes.
Because your friend is worried that if they tell you that they're gay, you will maybe even call the police on them or something. You know, so I feel like people are not visible enough, and clearly we can understand why people are trying to be safe. So I get where that myth comes from. It comes from a place of the fact that, you know, it's like the LGBT community has erased themselves, you know, and just, like I said, live in the shadows, and nobody knows anybody that is gay, in quote, or, you know, oh, my son can never be gay, you know, oh, my pastor, he is as straight as a, you know, as the narrow road to heaven, you know. So all these, you know, and because of we don't have people, a lot of people who are visible, you can count people who are visible.
Harry, visibility is increasing.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. In addition to what he's saying, it's also like something else that has to do with that is gayness is what has to be proven, right? There's always this assumption that everybody is heterosexual. Right?
True.
So you are the one making the assumption that you can't. You are in making that statement that you don't know any gay people. Like, you are the one making that assumption because, you know, heterosexuality doesn't have to be proven. It's like everybody takes it as what is right. So I think that also stems from that. That gayness is what has to be proven.
And that being gay is an abnormality. So we just assume that, okay, everybody is straight. So yeah, you make a valid point there.
Okay, let's talk very quickly about this unfortunately prevalent comment that, you know, okay, we allow the gays, then next the pedophiles. This side by side that happens where people equate homosexuality with pedophilia, despite all evidence to the contrary, can we do our best to just like shut it down?
It's not the same. It's not the same. It has never been the same. Cases of pedophilia that we hear a lot in Nigeria. Let's bring it home. Let's not even take it abroad. It's between an older man and a younger woman. Is that the older man has kidnapped the woman, or a man is raping a younger?
Studies continue to show
that's like, illegal in Nigeria. Pedophilia is legal in Nigeria. Well, I mean, if you can marry a 14-year-old girl.
No, but Chiedozie, even when we talk about it in that way, then, you know, but the thing is, there is no relationship, you know, and it feels, it's one of those things that is in your face harmful, because it immediately puts a mindset. So a gay teacher, for instance, is scared to work in a school because of the connections. Even though science continues to show, or studies continue to show, that majority of these incidents are heterosexual in nature. And also, homosexual relationships, LGBT relationships are consensual. Adults, two people who have an equal say in the relationship.
And pedophilia is also not a sexual orientation.
Thank you.
It's not. I think that's the perfect answer to it.
To just round it out.
It's a perfect answer to it, yes.
Our last myth, people are gay because they have childhood trauma.
I had to deal with this a couple of days ago.
Really?
Yeah. A so-called study, and the study was utter bullshit. Like, it made no sense. If you are saying that people are gay because of childhood trauma, you have to be able to prove that everybody who's heterosexual hasn't gone through childhood trauma.
Exactly.
It doesn't stand to reason in any way.
I think one of the things you notice when you unpack these myths is how not founded in any real fact
it's just
they
intended
are.
to stifle conversation.
Yes. Are there any I've missed? Are there any that you can think about?
I feel you really have it really covered.
I try to be thorough because these are things that affect, again, everyday people. Gay people that get married to straight people because they believe that after some time in that relationship they will change. And then who either start to manifest, you know, abusive behavior or start to participate in dangerous sexual practices, the mental and emotional turmoil that goes with that, you know, young people who are just getting to know themselves and then have to deal with their loved ones and their friends and their family giving such unfounded points of view, you know, especially to a young person who is just coming to terms with the fact that, oh, I'm gay. And then you're hearing your friends and your family say things that turn you into some sort of monster. And you internalize that. And then you start to think that there's something wrong with you, something that you must fix. And so there's going for deliverance and, you know, conversion camps and all of those. And it's just this very hurtful cycle that has, you know,
and it has the effects, and people are still living with the effects of conversion therapy. And no matter how small it is, you know, the fact that at some point in your childhood you felt like you were not enough, you were an abnormality, you know, people are still living with that. It affects how they even engage in homosexual relationships. You know, people who are trans are still getting murdered. You know, the rate of trans deaths have increased and like an all-time high this year. You know, because people still have these myths that surround that also. So I feel like we need to do a better job. I really like what Untold Facts is doing because of we're trying to educate. And I feel like a lot of education is needed. You know, a lot of representation in the media is needed. People need to see and understand that there is nothing to these things. You know, it's very normal, it's very regular. You know, people need to be treated as people, full stop.
Full stop. Chiedozie, do you think that there is anything else that the media can do to erase these myths or to present correct perspectives? And I know, like, I mean, there's quite a lot of work going on where people are presenting alternative, correct narratives, and sometimes that might feel like their niche. You're saying this to the LGBT community, but not to the heterosexual community. Do you think there's more? What more do you think we can do?
Well, better research for starters. Better research, because you'd see stuff and be like, are you serious right now? Like, last year, I remember watching a movie. I was in this waiting room in an African Magic Epic, and you know, there was this stuff about somebody, you know, being diagnosed with HIV, for example. You know, that was this, and it was like, he's going to die, oh my god. I'm like, are you serious? In 2000, that was a movie made in 2017 or so. So you can do research, and like, there's just a lot of laziness when it comes to these issues. No covering of ground at all. So that's the place to start.
Thank you so much, Chiedozie, and thank you, Harry. I know that this is just one conversation, and I honestly hope that there are people that will watch this episode and interrogate why they believe the things that they do, you know, because to the heterosexual person who's saying these things or repeating them, it might sound like just regular gossip or something that you've heard and always believed. But it doesn't cost anything to take a little time to interrogate why you believe what you believe. Do some research. LGBT people around the world are harassed. Homophobia is at an all-time high. People lose their lives, they're assaulted. They go through life feeling like they're abnormal because of these beliefs that are passed around so easily. If you're somebody who has been affected by some of these myths, and perhaps you have a moment of clarity, please make sure you reach out to us on our social media channels. We'll be so glad to hear from you. And if you had a moment where you thought, oh, I've always believed this about LGBT people, and now I know better, please let us know. It will make us so happy to know that we've managed to give you a little bit of clarity and helped you to interrogate these erroneous beliefs and hopefully shown you some of the more correct ways to think about LGBT people and being LGBT in Nigeria, in Africa, and in the world. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next episode. In 2018, there were over 200 reported hate crimes against LGBT people in Nigeria. Now, these were crimes carried out by fellow citizens, individuals who felt empowered to carry out acts of hate against another human being simply because of their sexuality.
They came down from the bus with guns and they had their uniform. So they asked me to bring out my ID card, which I did. And one of them said I was looking like a lady in my ID card.
I didn't remember to be scared. I just pictured the end. I tried to imagine how this tragedy was already going to play out.
So the boy was trying to escape, but it was too late. They dragged him back, they started beating him, everything. At the end of the day, I don't know where they take him to.
Now, there's certain fundamental rights that every Nigerian citizen is entitled to. The right to privacy, the right to life, the right to freedom of association and assembly. Actually, hold that. Because LGBT people in Nigeria have that last right, the right of freedom to assembly and association, severely limited.
Is there ways in which we use legal structures and violence and oppression to determine someone's ability to live fully?
I think this is why we're here, to increase people's knowledge of their rights.
So I'm very happy to know that the statistics, the data is showing that perceptions are changing, that people are becoming more aware of the real life implications of these laws. Because I think when people don't understand that these laws affect people on a day-to-day basis, then they're less likely to care. So I'm really happy.
Change is coming. It's slow. It's taking a while, but it will surely come.
None of us is free until all of us are free. This is how we can have a more inclusive and a more diverse society. My name is Arit Okpo. Thank you for watching.